And that's when I really, like at that moment, when I realized like I thought I'd be so excited and I walked away from that. I had my dream car and I walked away feeling like maybe I don't deserve this. And that's when I realized there are some things that you absolutely have to be willing to live without and to give up if you want to have success.
This is the Unlock Success Podcast. We're helping entrepreneurs around the world dive deep into the keys you need to shatter excuses, believe in yourself, and help you achieve your highest goals. Here's your host, 8-figure entrepreneur and the living legend of internet marketing, Anthony Morrison.
Hey, Anthony Morrison here, and welcome to this episode of the Unlock Success Podcast for audio for some of you, video for others. But listen, in this podcast, in this episode, what I really want to do is I want to talk to you about the things that you're going to have to be willing to give up to become successful. You know, I talk a lot about here are the things that you need to do to be successful. Here's the new stuff you need to learn. Here are the new places you need to go, the new people you need to associate with, the new techniques you need to learn, like all of those things, right? Like we talk a lot about that. But what we don't talk about is the things that you have to be willing to give up. You know, I'm 15 years in to my journey here as an entrepreneur and as a successful business person, and I look at it and I see that over time certain things have changed, right? So we'll kind of go through some of those things that we need to give up and the reasons why. All right. So the number one thing that you have to be willing to give up is, honestly, it's negative people in your life, right? You've got to be willing to give up negative people, and here's why. Because a lot of people, and I experienced this a lot growing up, especially having success at such a young age. I'll never forget when I filmed my first infomercial, and it ran all over the country, like just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people saw it, tons and tons of exposure. There were people talking about me all over the internet, all over the place. Like everywhere I went, people knew who I was. It was just insane. And I'll never forget that some of my friends, the people that had been my friends for years, like they were my friends when I, for lack of better terminology, when I was broke, when I was a kid, when I was in high school or college, and I was trying to find who I was, right? They were my friends. And I'll never forget that they started pushing away from me. They started judging me an awful lot. They started, making comments that would make me feel uncomfortable. Comments like, well, you're so successful, or well, you have so much money, why don't you pay for this? Or you've got this, why don't you do that? Or, well, does what you teach really work? They would plant those seeds of negativity in me consistently and constantly. And I think a lot of times it's because of envy. It's because they are envious, not necessarily of your success, not necessarily of the money that you've made, but of the mindset that you have. Because let's just face it, every single person would love to be successful. Every person would love to have the grit, the determination, and the ability and the confidence in themselves to go and do it. Just go for it, right? But a lot of times, human nature and just humans in general, we're reserved. We're mindful of ourselves, so we lack a lot of confidence. Innately, we lack confidence. If you have a high level of confidence, it's because you've built it up, right? Very few people are just born with the confidence to just go do whatever they want to do. And so what happens is, as you excel and as you kind of go on this path to a greater you, right, to having more success in your life, what happens is that those people, they're still stuck back there like in high school years, right? Where their mindset isn't such that they could go film a television show and put it on TV, or start their very own business, or run this ad campaign, or do this or do that. Like they're still kind of in that normal zone, right? And they can't think the way that you think. They can't have the same thoughts, the same beliefs, the same goals that you have. And so what happens is their goals stay here. Your goals go up here, right? And you're no longer on the same level. And it doesn't mean that they're bad people, and it doesn't mean that you're better than those people. What it means is you're no longer really compatible, right? They're always going to look at you and kind of make you feel judged, because at the end of the day, they really wish that they could be doing what you're doing. They wish that they could step out on that limb and go for it like you've done, but they're just not capable of it. They're paralyzed. They're holding themselves back, right? When you have that negativity in your life, there's no doubt that it causes you 100%. It's going to cause you to start thinking about things a lot differently. I know when I first experienced that, my very good friend, like best friend from when I was probably 6 years old and up, he made a comment to me about a car that I bought, right? And it was the very first car that I ever bought myself after I'd made all this money and had all this success, and I finally bought myself this really cool car. And he made a really snide comment about it. And I remember driving off after, showing it to him, thinking he'd be really excited, thinking he'd be like, wow, this is awesome. And I remember driving off after listening to his comment, thinking to myself, like, maybe I don't deserve these things. Maybe I don't deserve to have this. Maybe I shouldn't have this, And it was my first feeling of adversity. It was my first time to experience that super negative person in my life telling me that I shouldn't have this, or I didn't deserve this, or I could, that type of mentality. And I thought to myself on the drive home, I remember thinking, like, this is that moment in my life where I'm going to have to cut some of these people out of my life that are not on the same page as me, that are not willing to support what I'm doing. And you'll find that you have friends, you have family, you have coworkers, you have people in your life that are going to do this. Now, family obviously gets a pass. You're always going to have that with your family. I experience it too. And it's ups and downs, right? And family is family. They're always going to be there. So we can't exactly just cut our family out of our lives. But friends and people that are kind of external influences, what you find is as you unlock success in your life, your group of friends changes, right? You eliminate these negative people, right? The ones that are kind of stuck back here with a different type of mindset, right? And you unlock this huge group of people over here that's willing to help pull you along, willing to help you grow as a person, that you're going to learn from, that have the same ideals, the same goals. And honestly, at the end of the day, they're the people that are going to help you become a better version of yourself, right? So you've got to remove negative people. The second thing is you've got to eliminate bad habits. Look, it doesn't matter what anybody tells you. Bad habits will sabotage success almost every single time, right? So there's no way around it. Like if you are a person that consistently spends, 60% of your time playing Nintendo games, right? Or whatever they call it these days. Well, guess what? That's not a very good habit for successful entrepreneurs. A successful entrepreneur is probably not playing video games, 60% of their time. They're probably reading, educating themselves, learning, those types of things. They're not playing video games. And if that's the type of habit that you have, you've got to cut those habits, right? Because as you create more success, you have to push the bad habits away and replace those bad habits with good habits, with habits that are going to help you grow, help you learn, help you be educated, and help you ultimately reach the level of success that you truly want. But every minute that you spend doing something that's non-productive is a minute that you've lost to do something very productive, right? And so bad habits are the number one killer of success. You've got to eliminate them, okay? What I did was I literally made I have a notebook, and I've always done this. I don't know if any of you have done this before, but I have a notebook, and I kind of live and die by this notebook. Like whatever I put in the notebook for the day is literally what I'm going to do for the day. And I used that notebook, and I kind of logged what I was doing throughout the day. What are my habits? What am I habitually doing? And one of the things I found for myself, and I don't know if this anybody listening, watching this has found the same thing, I found myself getting caught up on social media, where I would literally spend 20, 30, 40 minutes just scrolling through Facebook on the news feed, reading some of the dumbest stuff that made absolutely no sense to me, right? It wasn't a productive point in time for me at all. And when I noticed that, right, the awareness to notice something like that, what I did was I logged out of Facebook, I took it off of my web browser, it's not on, and I have to consciously go to Facebook in order to see any of that stuff, right? I have to go log in. I don't keep my password saved on my Facebook account on my computer. I make it difficult for myself so that I have to think about, do I really want to do this bad habit thing right now or not, right? Before I go and do it. It saved me so much time in my day to be productive, instead of reading about all of the drama between all of the people that you see on Facebook, right? So that's just an example of how I was able to get rid of a bad habit, right? And we all have our different vices, our different bad habits, but it is something that as you grow as an entrepreneur and as you create success and you get on the right path to success, you will have to get rid of. Another thing is you will have to give up saying yes. This is probably one of the most important things. So this is a third thing. You will have to stop saying yes. Listen, so many times people ask us to do things, right? Will you come on this will you come and do this interview? Will you be a guest, write a guest post on my blog? Will you go to lunch with me? Will you go to dinner with me? Will you go to this movie with me? Will you go to this soccer game with me? Will you go on this vacation with me? You get the point, right? People are always asking of you. And when you're on the path to success, you kind of have to be selfish with your time, right? Because every time that you say yes to something that's not productive, what you're essentially doing is saying no to doing something that's actually productive, right? And we never really look at that, right? When I ask people, and I do this all the time, when I ask people, I say, okay, well, walk me through your day. Tell me what's happening with your day. And they'll say, well, my friend asked me to go over here to this truck shop with them while they lift their car. So I went over there and did that. And I said, wait just a second, time out. If your friend had not asked you to do that, during that time frame, what would you have been doing? Well, I would have been doing da-da-da-da. And they're talking about something for their business. And I say, okay, so do you see that what happened here was you said yes to something. And by saying yes to that, you essentially said no to spending your time over here on your business and on the things that you really need to be doing to grow and to have success. And they said, well, I've never really thought about it that way. And I said, that's my point. That's the reason why I do this. That's the reason why I teach this stuff, because you have to be able to see it for what it really is. And that is that every time you say yes to somebody or to something in your life, right? If it happens to be at the expense of saying yes to learning and educating yourself and working on your business and working on what it is that you're trying to do to create success, well, then you're taking time away, right? You're saying yes to this and no to that. And you have to really determine for yourself, is that worth it? So a lot of times I say no now. I say no to a lot of things that most people, I think, would probably say yes to, and that I would have said yes to before I started thinking of it that way. So get rid of negative people, get rid of bad habits, stop saying yes. And the fourth thing is goals. You got to change your goals. Goals are going to, as you grow as an entrepreneur, your goals are going to change anyway because ultimately your beliefs change, right? If you think about it, your set of beliefs right now, right, probably came from how you were raised. Whether you are Democrat or Republican, whether or not you're Christian, whether or not, you feel that education is really important or, that it's not, whether you feel like you should have a 9-to-5 job or you feel like you should own your own business. Like all of those things, like those beliefs that you have and that belief system you have is a belief system that was put in place by your family, right? The way you were raised, your family and your environment, the way you were raised. But you got to remember that is during a period of time where you were growing, right? Where you were growing and you were kind of being turned into whatever it is that you are today. But if today you're looking to go to the next level in your life to create habits that are going to help you have more success, if you're trying to get off of this path and onto another path, then ultimately your beliefs are going to change, which means your goals are going to change. So for instance, when you're younger, and all of us, all of us probably have had a similar thought. When you're younger, you're like, man, I want to grow up and I want to have a great job and I want to get that awesome college degree and then I want to make enough money so I can buy this epic car and live in this really cool house and I'm just really and like your goals. Like when you talk to somebody like that, if you talk to the 18-year-old Anthony, right? My goal would have been to have a nice house, have a Dodge Viper, and make good money. Like that was my goal. But now that I'm off that path and I'm on a completely different path, like my goal is to have, $50 million worth of real estate investments. My goal is to have, my goals have been met, but they changed. It was like, I wanted a Ferrari, I wanted a Lamborghini, I wanted a Rolls Royce, I wanted all these things. And I accomplished and I got all of those things, right? But my goals changed because I'm on a different path. And what you'll find is you have to let go of the goals that you used to have and replace those with the goals that you now have. Because going to another level of success, going to another level of I guess of learning and of educating and of growing as a person means that you oftentimes got to let go of the people in the past that live in the past, right? Like you'll have a lot of friends, a lot of people that'll say, back when this was this way, life was great, and you're just like, oh, God, you can't be bothered with that because you can't go back in time. Because your mind and my mind and everyone else that's on this path for massive success and unlocking success in our lives, we're on like what we're going to do in the future. We have like this bigger future mindset and not this past mindset, right? So you're going to have to let go of people. You're going to have to let go of the old goals that you have. And you're going to have to let go, most importantly, of bad habits and replace those bad habits with good habits. These are the things that you've got to be willing to give up if you want to be able to have the success that you truly can have. I've seen this happen in my life. It's happened time and time again. I could give you hundreds of examples of this, and I'm sure that you have some examples of it yourself in your life, right? And all I can say is that when you understand this, and I wish somebody had taught me this up front. I wish somebody had laid this out for me and just said, Anthony, you need to get rid of negative people. You need to quit having these bad habits. Your goals are going to change. So forget all these lower level goals because you're now on this different path and you have bigger goals, right? And other people can't understand those bigger goals. So ultimately, the bigger goals result in having to get rid of some of the people in your life that are going to hold you back, pull you down, say negative things to you because they can't think at that level, right? They're not at that point. And I wish somebody had told me that. And most importantly, I wish somebody had told me to stop saying yes, because I think that as we have success, we start to feel like almost like it's wrong of us to say no, right? Like if somebody asks me to do something, I almost feel guilty if I don't say yes, especially if it's something where I financially can help them, right? And I went through a long period in my life where people consistently were asking me for things, asking me to do things, asking me to donate to things, asking me to help them with things. And it drug me down. Not only did it take up a lot of my time, it also caused friction and caused problems. And I wish that somebody had told me, Anthony, listen, if you want to be really successful, right, here are some things that you're going to have to be willing to give up in order to make that happen, in order to make that a smoother path. Because we all want the path of least resistance, right? We don't want to have all the friction going towards success. Like we want to have the path of least resistance if possible. And a lot of times, if we're just educated, if we listen to somebody who's been there and who's done that, we can live that path of least resistance. We can eliminate some of those roadblocks, some of those problems, some of those things in our life that maybe that cause us stress, right? And I wish somebody had been here to tell me this 15 years ago. I think it would have made a huge difference, if not in the level of success that I had, certainly in the amount of time that it took me to get there, or the amount of friction and stress that that I had on me on that path. So hopefully you've learned something here, you've enjoyed something here. That's the reason why I do this. The whole reason why I created this Unlock Success podcast, which again, some of you are listening to it on audio and some of you watching on video, is to take the lessons that I've learned throughout my life, right? And try to share those with you and try to give those to you. Because as I sit here right now, we just finished they just got the final approval on building our dream home, right? I'm 37 years old. I waited until many, many, many years after I made and generated my first $100 million online before I built and started to build my dream home. But I look at where I'm at today and the goals that I have achieved and have met, right? The success that I've had. And I look at the path that it took me to get there. And I'll be honest with you, like it wasn't the easiest path. Like it wasn't without many bruises, let's put it that way. And the idea that other entrepreneurs and other people who are looking to have that same success in their lives can listen to a 15, 20-minute video or podcast that from me and take away just a little piece, just a little something, and turn it into into a better path for them, into avoiding some of those pitfalls, some of that friction, is what really drives me to do this. So I hope that you learned an awful lot. I hope that you now understand the 4 things that you need to give up in order to become successful. And I look forward to seeing you here next time on the Unlock Success Podcast.